Well, good evening, everybody. I want to invite you guys to just kind of come together, and we're going to jump in and get started here real quickly. Right here before you, I have my nifty glasses case so that they don't get scratched up and everything, because often I'll just shove them in my pocket, and you know what happens when you just take your glasses and you shove them in your pocket? They get all scratched up, but unfortunately there's nothing in here, so that's not, I don't think I took yours, but Amy's looking for hers, and we'll see if they show up. Otherwise, hey, we'll just kind of go at it a little bit blind, and I'll hold this way back here. Yeah, Peter, you'll just have to hold my Bible is what you'll have to do. Anyway, welcome, guys. Good evening, and thanks for being here tonight. Those of you that are watching at home, we welcome you. We're thrilled to death that, are those cheaters?
I don't know.
We're going to find out. We're going to find out. Nope, these are, whoa, wow. Somebody is really, really blind, and these are really scratched up. Wow, those are scratched up. Okay, it's all right. We'll figure it out. Those of you that are watching at home, welcome. We're glad that you guys are here with us and stuff. You did miss, I think Amy did say on Sunday, I think she said something like ham casserole, and I think my mind immediately pushed that away because it just didn't sound very good in my mind. But I was late getting here and wolfed down a big old plate of ham casserole, and I got to tell you, I thought that was pretty A+. So, and who made the desserts? Who made the desserts? We have, you're the cherry thing. You made that. That was wow. That was great too. And whoever brought, and yeah, I did. Whoever brought the Dairy Queen ice cream, A+s for that as well. And yes, Dad made a lemon thing. I don't know if he told you that was from Monday or Sunday or something like that, but it was probably still good. All right. Hey, guys, listen, thank you for coming and being together. Listen, what I want to say to you guys is this. Number one, oh gosh, those are really.
If you're desperate.
Whee! Wow, Evan. Oh, my lands, Evelyn, those are really good ones. Thank you. Hey, can I just say to you guys that as far as Sundays go and Wednesday nights go, we're in a pandemic still, they say, and things are still goofy and whatever else. We have a lot of folks who have called Open Door their church over the years that are really kind of at an age right now where it's not very easy for them to come out. And yet, I ran downstairs, and I guess Amy and Randy did the offering. And I was looking on there, and I saw the number of people that we had in church on Sunday, and I thought, wow, that's really pretty good. That's not bad right now. And I come in here, and I'm flying. You don't let me tell you about the last hour and a half of my life, okay? Just don't let me go there, okay? But I'm running late, and I'm going way over the speed limit. I'm pulling into the church parking lot, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, there's a lot of cars here. And I'll tell you, some days are stressful, some days aren't stressful. I am so glad to be with you guys tonight. You know what? I came in, and then I saw Brian and Elizabeth, and I thought, that's right, Brian hasn't left yet for Texas. And I get to see Brian and Elizabeth, and it's nice, it is, isn't it? Isn't it good? And Brady, I can't remember the last time I've seen you here on a Wednesday night. Thanks for coming, man. It's nice to have you here. Tonight's going to be a little bit unique and a little bit different. I think most of you guys know that I took vacation this week, so I'm on vacation, and I'm working on a house across the street. You are more than welcome to pray for me. I will accept those prayers this week. I will accept those prayers all the way through the month of June, because I figured if I can get through the month of June, then I'll be okay. But I'm not so sure. But Friday, there's a graduation. Bethany's finished up. She took her last final. She is done with college. Everyone go, woohoo! That's pretty fun, isn't it? So she graduates on Friday, and then she's going to move in with us for about a month and a half or something until they get married. And then that rotten husband of hers is going to move her away down near Atlanta, Georgia. But I say that in jest. And then you have Matthew's graduation and a wedding and a bunch of other stuff. But Tom, and you hear me refer to Tom all the time, my neighbor across the street, he let me know the other day that he's going to be moving out of the house on the 26th, I think he said. And we need to move that house. And the goal was to sell it, by the end of July, but I thought he was going to be in it through June. So we're pushing and working really hard to get this house ready to go. And tomorrow is going to be a really, really, really busy day over there, putting in can lights and redoing wiring and painting a ton of baseboard and getting ready to install new windows and, wow, a whole gamut of goodies. So you can pray for us. The Gammons are going to be busy for a few weeks. And if I look a little bit stressed out or whatever else, please forgive me. I don't mean to. Brady said, hey, I would love to get together with you. And I said, Brady, is there any way we can hold off until Monday? And he said, yeah, I think we can. I said, Brady, I appreciate it. So anyway, that's kind of what's going on with us. I do want to say this as well. I just really, really want to give a big hoo-hoo to the Smile Ministry. I just do. I know that they're selling tickets for lasagna night. I hope there's big old chunks of really hot, spicy Italian sausage in that lasagna. And Amy, if we haven't got our tickets, we cannot go the night without getting 2 tickets for the 2 of us. Okay, but I'm looking forward to that. But more than that, I know that they popped in and saw a couple different people that I haven't been able to see here real recently. I've been eager to get over there again and see Terry and Louise. Haven't seen Terry and Louise. Yeah, I heard that. And some different things. And, and I've had other people come to me and say, hey, Jeff, we want to help out with some ministry, things and visitations and different things. I love this church. I mean, I really do. I love this church. I've got pastor friends that are in big cities, I got a friend who's pastoring one of our Free Methodist churches in Denver, Colorado, and I kind of think, dude, you are a lucky little dog. But you know what? In reality, I really don't. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I love this church. I love what God's doing in this church right now, and you guys have no idea how much you guys mean to me. I appreciate the fact that we look at ministry as a whole. And, Brian and Elizabeth went over there, and I can't believe the care that they've given Kyle and Lisa Adcock at different times. And it just warms me up inside. And I know that many of you guys do. Nancy, you just do so much stuff. And I all of you guys, different ways, different times, different things. God bless you guys. I cannot believe how beautiful the grass looked last week. And my mom said, I don't want to tell on you, Mom. But Mom said, I came out here and I saw Mary and stuff. And there's Mary. She's pushing this big old, push lawnmower up and down the hill. And it just looked like it was just wearing her out and stuff. And Mom kind of comes over and she shuts the lawnmower off in order to talk to Mom. And then she said, and I felt bad because I was kind of like interrupting her. And then I don't think she was able to get the lawnmower started. And she had to take it over to Jerry. And I felt so horrible. She said she felt so horrible, Mary. But y'all just did such a beautiful job. And, there's a lot of things that are planted in the garden right now. And that's just really exciting. You guys are an awesome church. You guys step up and you just do things in different ways and stuff. And I love that. And I'm going to tell you, I grew up in the age and the time when pastors had to do church, by themselves. If it was a church under 275, seemed to be about that number. They might have a part-time person on staff with them, usually a secretary, maybe a part-time youth pastor or something. But pastors were expected to do it all. And I think another part of the reason why the church, kind of crashed and burned was because it just wasn't realistic. And I think pastors kind of figured that out. And, let me say this, and I don't want to ramble too much, but let me say this, and we'll move on to what we're going to be talking about tonight. But I know of a couple of churches, not terribly far from here, and the lead pastor, the pastor who normally speaks on Sunday mornings, nobody knows his email address, and definitely nobody has his cell phone number. And if you're going to make an appointment to see that pastor, good luck. You can probably set an appointment, but you're probably going to have to wait about a week. Now, the other associate pastors or the other 12 people that are on staff full-time, you'll be able to see them immediately. But the lead guy, not so easy. I hate that, but I get that. I get that. And the thing of it is, I don't want to be that guy. If it ever got to that place where that was going to be that guy, I'm going to say, okay, well then make me an associate pastor, because I don't want to be the lead pastor then. But I appreciate the fact that you guys get this, and you guys realize this is a team. This isn't, Jim McEnroe and Andre Agassi. How is that for you good old school people? Playing tennis back and forth, just two guys slugging out. No, this is a football team, and there are a lot of players on this team. And I love the fact that players are stepping up and jumping in the game and working hard. So my hat's off to you guys, and I applaud you guys. I do. You guys are awesome. All right, tonight what we're going to do is I've got a video that we're going to watch. I don't know, that might excite you, that might not. And I'll tell you what the video is about after I get my brains about me, and we talk a little bit about prayer first, and then we pray, okay? So, prayer sorts of things and stuff. Guys, what is the Lord putting on your heart for us to be praying about right now? What kinds of things is the Lord putting on your heart, saying, hey, will you remember to pray for this? Because I think that's when prayer becomes turbocharged. It's not when we just sit there and we're thinking, okay, well, so-and-so's sick, so-and-so's got this, so-and-so's that. Those are good, but I think when prayer becomes really significant is when we stop and we have the pre-prayer time before the prayer time. And what does the pre-prayer time look like? Mom, what does the pre-prayer time look like? So I think there is the prayer before the prayer. Lord, in a little while, I'm going to set aside some great time, to pray to you. But I want to know the things that you want me to pray about. There's prayer, there's power in prayer. And so there's really that pre-prayer prayer that I think is just so vitally important. And I'll tell you, if you guys do that, and if you remember that, I'm just going to tell you right now, your prayers are going to just escalate in power, okay? And I really do not mind praying for people's aches and pains. I'm going to tell you, the other day I did like 13,000 steps, and this foot I thought was just killing me. And it's the ankle that I broke. And I know that there's going to be a time when I'm going to sit there, come to the church, I'm going to say, would you please pray for my ankle, because I can hardly get around on it and stuff, you know what I mean? But I don't mind praying for those things. And if the Lord puts that on your mind to pray for somebody about their aches and their pains, then by all means do that. But I believe, guys, praying for somebody's broken arm that's probably going to heal up, perfectly fine, is okay to pray about. But I would much rather pray about somebody's spiritual well-being, somebody's spiritual health, somebody who's in the midst of a really hard battle right now. Deanna Montgomery's been in the midst of a really hard battle. I talked to her. We talked about this on the prayer team on Tuesday. I ended up giving her a call a little bit later. I think it was, it had to have been yesterday because today's Wednesday. And talked with her, and she says, "Yeah, I'm doing okay. Just, I don't feel well." And it becomes a spiritual battle because of the aches and the pains and stuff. And I'm like, I get that. And I know she's concerned about her son Jaden and just lots of different things there. But I tell you guys, praying for people's spiritual well-being. There you go. That's getting in the trenches in World War I, fighting the battle with the mosquitoes and the bugs and the nastiness and the stench and the bloodshed and everything else. Things that you feel the Lord is wanting us to pray about tonight. Do you guys have anything? Yes, sir. Silent prayer request. Love the silent prayer requests. Yes, ma'am.
Pray for the violence that's going on in our big cities.
Yeah.
They need help.
Let me ask you, have they brought a verdict back yet? They haven't yet. I haven't had I still have not had the television on. Amy, I came downstairs and Amy was watching the news. I grabbed my Cheerios or Frosted Flakes or whatever, I sat down at the table, and guess what my wife did? She turned that television off. And I said, "Thank you, sweetheart, thank you." Feels good not having that television on. I tell you, not even just the news. I mean, just, anyway. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of turmoil. Yeah, absolutely, especially in the big cities. Good thing. Good thing. Now listen, when we come together on Sundays for church on Sunday mornings, you know what you could be doing on Saturday night? Lord, are there things that you are going to want me to pray about on Sunday morning when we go to church? And if so, reveal them to me. And when it comes time to the prayer time, I'll remember those things. Get a notebook out, write them down. And do that on Wednesday nights when we come together before Wednesday nights. By the way, Tuesday's a designated prayer day for the church. I don't know if you all know that or not. I don't know if I've said that enough. But we have a prayer meeting that takes place from 11 until about 12. It's usually done by 12. And you can come and participate in it via the website. You can Zoom it. I send out an email to everybody's email address that I have who calls the Open Door Church their church. You get that on Tuesday, usually about 10:30. And it'll have a link. And if you don't have Zoom, you click on that link and it'll say, well, we would love for you to join the meeting, but you haven't downloaded the software. Would you like to download the software? You say yes, you download the Zoom software, and then you can click on the link and you'll join the party. You're welcome to do that. And by the way, whether you come in person or you are online, because we can usually see you and you can see us and that sort of thing, you do not have to pray out loud. You absolutely do not. There's a lot of people that come. Well, not a lot of people, but there are a handful of people each week that will not pray. Sometimes one person will pray on one week, and then the next week they won't pray. I know they're praying, quietly to themselves or whatever, but you know what I'm saying. But I love the idea of the pre-prayer prayer. Okay? Everyone say pre-prayer prayer. Amy didn't say it. Amy, you got to say it. Amy say it. Come on. All right. Do you think that God will be a good judge on the judgment day? You think he's going to be fair? Randy says he's going to be fair.
And I don't mean he'll just be fair. I mean, he'll be a fair judge.
He'll be a fair judge. He's not just going to be fair. He's going to be a fair judge. Okay. I'm with you, Randy. I hear what you're saying. Oh. Somebody said, oh, you said he's going to go by the facts. Mom, did you say something? What did you say? He's the only judge. He's going to be consistent. And did some other people say a couple things? Brian said just, and I tell you the word justice. Justice. The Bible says that he's just. But what about the person in Tanzania who's in a tribe who's never had a missionary ever step foot? What about the people? Because more and more and more people are going to those places. Wycliffe translates Bibles to people's languages and far off distant places and so forth. So they translate Bibles, and they go and they'll send missionaries, and they'll pass out the Bibles, and they can ask questions, and they try to get the word out that way. But, you know, most of the Bibles, these things have come about in the last 100 years. What about those 300 years ago that never got a Bible? Yes.
Read Colossians 1:23.
I'm not going to read Colossians. I'm going to preach on Colossians. You better, yeah, you better believe it. Well, we're going to talk about a couple of these things. But that's where we're kind of going. That's where we're going to go, and I'm glad you know that. And the fact that you even know where it is, you can't just quote the scripture, that you give an address, you deserve cookies. So you think he's going to be a just God? From the heart. Can you think of scriptures that go along with that? I've heard one. Are there some others that you can think of? I'm going to share one of them with you. We'll start. Go ahead. Yeah, but what does that have to do with God being just? That's what I'm asking about. I want, like, how can God, you know, how is he going to be able to rule and judge over all of these different things that have happened? You know, you've got a kid who's grown up in the projects in Gary, Indiana, murder capital of the world again. Do you know that? It's number one in the world again right now. Myrtle Beach, murder capital of the world. There we go. Again, right now. So, you know, what about the kid that grows up there and is instantly indoctrinated into ideologies and then into gang life and all of this stuff, you know, and never hears about, you know, God except for, you know, when his name's taken in vain? You know, how does God deal with those kinds of things? All of these things. Do these questions ever haunt you? Do you ever question them? Gary, Indiana. Gary, what's Gary's last name, Amy? Maynard, of course. Gary Maynard asked that question. He wanted to ask it on a Wednesday night, and he was a little embarrassed to ask that. He says, you know, Jeff, what about these people? You know, how is God going to judge them and so forth? We're going to talk a little bit about this, but I want to highlight something. If you've got your Bibles, you can turn to the book of Romans. And in Romans chapter 1, it's just very, very interesting. I know it's in Romans chapter 1, but I can't tell you exactly where it is, but I'll find it. Verse 19. Well, actually, you can even go back to verse 18. Romans chapter 1, verses 18 and 19. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and the wickedness of mankind, those who suppress the truth by their wickedness. So this was going on and has gone on pretty much since the time that sin entered the world, right? And certainly it feels like this is the case today, isn't it? You get to the next verse and it says this. It says, let me back up because there's a comma there, not a period, and so it doesn't make perfect sense unless we go back. Let me read the entire sentence to you. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against the godlessness and the wickedness of men who suppress the truth by their wickedness, since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. What may be known about God is plain to them. Why? Because God has made it plain to them. If God is going to be a just God, and if God is going to judge justly, I think it has an awful lot to do with how God makes himself and reveals himself plainly to people. Does that sound correct? Would it be a just, what was the county? Hazard County, Kentucky. Brian, name me an officer from Hazard County, Kentucky. Roscoe P. Coltrane in Hazard County, Kentucky. Here come the Duke boys. But it's not the Duke boys, because the Duke boys and Duke boys know. But let's say that there's just a passerby driving through Hazard, and they don't see a speed limit sign. And they don't know, so they go what they assume is a speed limit. And do you think it would be just for Roscoe to write somebody a ticket if there was no speed limit sign? Probably not. Probably not. But God makes plain, he says. He reveals and he makes plain to them. It goes on. It says, verse 20, for since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power, and his divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. Now, somebody could make the argument, and I don't know what the good comparison would be, but somebody could sit there and say, well, I just kind of choose to ignore the truth. I don't really want to ignore the truth. I just choose to ignore all of the traffic signs. I know they're there, but I don't think they're important. And for that reason, I'm just going to choose to ignore them. Do you think that they should be subject to the laws just because they choose to ignore the traffic signs? I think that they should be subject to them. I think we would all probably agree with that, okay? Just because somebody may say, I don't think that's really important. I used to think, and I hate this because I'm flat wrong, was flat wrong, I agree with it now, but I used to think that wearing the seatbelt was kind of stupid, okay? And didn't like to wear the seatbelt. And I've only had one ticket in the last 25 years, and that was because I didn't have a seatbelt on, But that changed about 12, 13 years ago, and I wear my seatbelt all the time now. In fact, I insist that everybody in the car wears the seatbelt, unless they're in the back seat, anyway. I don't even know if it's against the law to not have your seat on the back seat. That's for another time. I digress. But I do think that it's important, if you recognize and if you see something, it's kind of like a fool. Jesus says, be alert, recognize the times or recognize the seasons. You can tell that fall is coming when you observe that all the trees are turning multiple colors, correct? There are different things that you can observe and you can see that's going to help you to recognize that something is about to happen, something is going on. This verse is such a good verse. I'm so grateful for this verse because this verse, what this verse really tells me is you know what, Jeff, you don't have to worry about these things. I am just. I send people, I do things. I have angels that appear to be humans, and they go and they have conversations with people. This is biblical. This isn't made up stuff. And so, as people go through their lives, and when the end of their life comes, and they await standing before the judgment seat, whatever God does, whatever God says, however he rules, I know he's going to rule with justice because he is just. He is. Now, I can't fully fathom that and understand that, but I will say this, And we know this, and this is scriptural. This is a Bible verse that should be memorized. To the one who has been given much, what? I can't hear you. Much will be required. And so if you have been given much, if you have been given the gospel presented to you again and again and again and again, do you really think that you're going to be able to stand before the Heavenly Father and sit there and say, well, you know, I didn't really understand those things? It was presented to you. You chose to ignore it. You chose not to look into it. I understand that you didn't fully understand it. But for the one who would seek, they're going to find. You didn't even seek. Do you hear what I'm saying here with all these things? So, Pedro, he has experienced so many things. And he experienced tons of things before you ever even began to intervene in his life. Pedro is going to have to stand and give an account as to why he did or didn't or whatever, you know, as a result of all of the different things that has happened to him, right? We can all say that. And so I think it's important that we go and we share the gospel with people, right? We get their appetite, taste and see that the Lord is good. That's an actual verse. This isn't, and they're like, wow, I am curious. I want to hear more about this. I'll be very, very frank with you. We have friends in other churches and even in other denominations, and you know that this is a pet peeve for me, because I truly, honestly feel like there are going to be people, because the Bible says, they think they're going to enter into the kingdom of heaven, and they're going to stand there at the judgment seat, and they're going to go, what? What do you mean, away from me? What do you mean you never knew me? I was on the official board at the church. What do you mean, about these different kinds of things? And I'm telling you, ignorance isn't an excuse. Ignorance isn't an excuse. What may be seen about God has been made plain to them because God has made it plain to them. And they can look and they can search and they can, wow, the sky, God, I can't believe this. This is just amazing. There has to be a creator. There has to be a creator. We're going to watch tonight something that I thought was very well done. And that's why I'm going to show it to you, because I thought it was very well done. And it kind of has to do with this a little bit. All right? So we're going to watch it. And when I come back and say, hey, cut it, then you can cut it. I think the people at home are going to be able to watch us as well. And then we're going to come back and we're going to spend 5 minutes just in some quick dialogue, okay? I think you'll find this is good. At times it's a little bit, but not for very long at any given point in time. I thought it was well done. I think it's worth the view. And if you would, just make sure the volume is up really good and loud for it.
The following is a presentation of Apologetics Press.
Do creationists have a blind, evidence-less faith, or do we have a reasonable faith, while evolutionists have a blind faith? In our last session, we considered the fact that the mere existence of the laws of science is proof of a universal law writer. The naturalist must irrationally hold to the position that the laws of nature exist without a law writer. Such a conclusion is without evidence and is therefore irrational and unscientific. All available evidence points to the conclusion that a law requires a law writer. We then turned our attention to the first and second laws of thermodynamics. and found that it could not have existed forever, the universe, or have popped into existence from nothing, proving that someone must exist outside of the universe that created it. Obviously, that's an important finding, as it disproves naturalistic evolution and proves that God still belongs in the science classroom. Recall that the laws of science have been discovered through extensive scientific investigation, gathering mounds of evidence that points to some conclusion. If anything can be said to be scientific, it's the laws of science, and they are without exception. According to the McGraw-Hill Dictionary of Scientific and Technical Terms, a scientific law is a regularity which applies to all members of a broad class of phenomena. If the laws of science prohibit naturalistic theories, such as Darwinian evolution and the Big Bang, it would be irrational to continue to accept them. Sadly, the bulk of academia today stands under the dark shroud of irrationalism. In this session, we're going to look at two other areas of science to see what they have to say about the matter of origins. Ultimately, the laws of science present major unresolvable issues for the evolutionary model. The creation model, on the other hand, is in perfect harmony with the laws of science and even predicts their effects. No one has directly observed God. No one was here to witness the origin of the universe, to witness whether it was God or a Big Bang that started it all. No one was alive to see the flood of Noah's day. No one was here to witness the origin of life. No creationist witnessed God breathing life into man, and no evolutionist witnessed abiogenesis, non-living substances springing to life. No one has been alive long enough to directly witness firsthand whether or not Darwinian evolution has happened. But we can arrive at answers to these questions by examining the aftermath of these events, by examining indirect evidence. In the same way that forensic science can be used for legal purposes to help determine what happened in an accident or crime or some other event without the scientist actually witnessing the event, when we study our natural surroundings, it can help to illuminate how the universe got here. The question one must ask is, which model is more in harmony with the evidence, creation or evolution? In this seminar, we're examining the evolution idea, the atheist explanation, to see if it harmonizes with the evidence. The third law of science that stands against atheistic evolutionary models like the Big Bang is the law of cause and effect, or the law of causality, as it is sometimes called. It basically states that if there is an effect, there must logically be a cause. And more precisely, the law of causality says that in nature, every material effect must have an adequate antecedent or simultaneous cause. The cause must precede or come before the effect or occur at the same time as the effect, and it has to have the necessary potential, the necessary power to cause the effect. Now, this law is so obvious that scientists take it for granted. It's assumed. But in actuality, scientifically speaking, causality is not some idea that can be brushed aside without consideration. The goal of scientific experimentation is to figure out what will happen, what will be the effect if you do certain things, if you initiate certain causes. If there's no relationship between cause and effect, then nothing can be taken for granted. There's be no such thing as science. One day gravity may be in effect, the next day it's not. There'd be no such thing as a scientific law, since there'd be no such thing as a regularity, which, remember, is a part of the definition of a law. The National Academy of Sciences guidebook for teaching about evolution and the nature of science says, quote, "One goal of science is to understand nature. Understanding in science means relating one natural phenomenon to another and recognizing the causes and effects of phenomena." Causality, the law of cause and effect, is fundamental to the field of science, and even the evolutionists recognize that. Now, if a baseball comes flying over the fence in your backyard, you know that someone caused it. It didn't start flying of its own accord. The flight of the baseball is the effect of some cause. Leaning against a mountain will not cause it to topple over, no matter how hard you push. An adequate cause must be present to create such an effect. If you're sitting in a room and a wind-up toy comes running across the floor in front of you, you know that someone wound that toy up and sent it running. If you open up the cookie jar and you see a half-eaten cookie and there are children in the house, you know what happened. The cookie certainly didn't eat itself. If a chair is not placed in an empty room, the room will remain chairless. Seems simple? Well, understand, this principle might seem common sense and simple, so much so that it's easy to not fully grasp how important it is in this creation-evolution debate. The law of causality is a major problem for the evolutionary model of origins because there has to be a cause for the universe and for life, and atheists don't have one. In fact, they must insist that there can't be a cause under the naturalistic model. The pyramids of Giza, one of the 7 wonders of the world. The world can't come to an agreement as to how these structures were built and why. Some people think maybe aliens did it, and a movie called Stargate was put out about that idea. Scientists may not know with certainty how or why they were built, but scientists know that they couldn't have happened on their own. Intelligent design was involved, some cause. Stonehenge in Great Britain. After studying these interesting rock formations, scientists concluded that the formations were likely designed to allow predictions based on the stars above, but many questions still remain unsolved today, including how this information was used, how the rocks were transported to this location and set up. But one thing is clear to scientists. Even though they weren't there to witness the creation of these formations, scientists recognized the presence of intelligent design. An adequate cause was necessary to build these formations. Nobody is senseless enough to argue that these formations happened on their own. Could someone try to make that claim? Could someone say, well, these rocks just accidentally ended up this way and formed themselves due to some flood or due to a tornado or a meteor or something? Yeah, sure, someone could argue that. But no one would, because we recognize the product of a human mind when we see it. There's clear, intelligent design at work in these formations. Common sense tells us that there must have been an adequate cause for these formations. Why in the world would a universe replete with examples of infinitely more complex, organized structures requiring a mind much greater than our own be deemed the product of an accident? Unfortunately, common sense seems to have no place in a discussion of origins with many scientists today. We know that in nature, an effect has a cause. The fact that planets exist and are floating through space and are spinning shows that they are an effect. The existence of life, living beings, is an effect, and there must be an adequate cause. Things don't come to life on their own. Someone had to cause those things to happen, and yet the naturalist, the atheist, has no explanation. Now that said, evolutionists are in a fix, trying to explain how the effect of this infinitely complex universe could have come about without a cause. Some 3 decades ago, Robert Jastrow of NASA, who I've quoted from in a previous session, he said, quote, "The universe and everything that has happened in it since the beginning of time are a grand effect without a known cause." An effect without a cause, that's not the world of science. It's a world of witchcraft, of wild events and the whims of demons, a medieval world that science has tried to banish. As scientists, what are we to make of this picture? I do not know. Now understand that when Jastrow admits that there's no known cause for everything in the universe, he's talking about the fact that there's no known natural cause. If atheism were true, there must be a natural explanation for what caused the universe. Scientists and philosophers recognize that there must be a cause that would be enough to bring about matter in the universe. In other words, they understand that the law of causality demands an explanation for the origin of the universe, a cause, and yet no natural cause is known. But again, as with the other laws of science that we've looked at, the creationist is not in the quandary that the evolutionist finds himself in. The creationist believes that there's something beyond nature, something super nature. In the very first verse of the Bible, we're told that God is the ultimate cause of the universe. The creation model has a cause in keeping with science. The evolutionary model has no known cause. So question, which view is the scientific choice? Hebrews 3:4 says, "Every house is built by someone, but he who built all things is God." Every house is built by someone. In other words, every house has a cause. But the ultimate cause of all things, every material entity in the universe, according to the Bible, that's God. Now, a natural question that typically comes from this study is, now wait a minute, if everything has a cause, then doesn't God need a cause? What caused God? That's a natural question, and it deserves a response. First of all, the statement, everything has a cause, isn't what the law of causality says. It says every material effect must have an adequate cause. You see, the laws of nature only apply to nature, the universe, physical, material things. Why? Because remember that the laws of nature result only from a study of nature, not supernature. But God is not material or physical. He's spiritual, John 4:24. So the law doesn't even apply to him. Since we can't observe the supernatural realm today, we can't claim a cause is necessary for a spiritual being. But second, let's go ahead and think about this. Even if we apply the law of causality to a spiritual being, think about this logic. If there were ever a time in history when absolutely nothing existed, not even God, then logically, nothing would still exist, because nothing comes from nothing. Nothing could create itself. If the law applied to the spiritual realm, there'd have to be a cause for a spiritual being coming into existence from nothing, in the same way that there'd be a need for a physical object. So if there were ever a time in history when nothing existed, then nothing would still exist. But we know that something does exist, namely the universe. We know that exists. So by implication, since something exists, something had to exist forever. There couldn't be a time when nothing existed, or we'd still have nothing. And we know that that something that has existed forever can't be physical or material, since nothing physical lasts forever, according to the second law of thermodynamics. So that means that logically speaking, something non-material, something not physical, had to exist forever, not having a cause. According to the Bible, that's God. So notice again, the creation model has no conflict with science or reason. The evolutionary model, on the other hand, is in contradiction with science and reason. It requires the baseless assumption that there's no cause, which amounts to superstition and witchcraft. A fourth set of scientific principles that are relevant in our assessment of evolution, probability, is intimately intertwined with science. Scientists constantly study causes and effects. What will happen if I do this or do that? We try to determine all the factors that go into producing a certain effect, knowing that we can't account for all of them. And since we can't get perfect equations and can't account for every factor, we have to rely on probabilities. We look at past results and get statistics on those results so we can figure out how likely it is that something will or won't happen. In other words, we determine probabilities. Mark Kac was a famous mathematician and professor at Cornell and Rockefeller universities. He said, quote, "Probability is a cornerstone of all the sciences, and its daughter, the science of statistics, enters into all human activities." Evolutionists understand the significance of probability in science, and probability can be fine and good. But here's the problem. Evolutionists, in trying to defend atheism, go too far in their use of probability and its laws. Some scientists argue that anything will happen, given enough time, no matter how far-fetched, as long as it doesn't have a probability of zero. They claim that since evolution supposedly doesn't have a probability of zero, then as long as it has enough time to do its work, it'll happen. Supposedly objects will just pop into existence, and eventually those things can grow the necessary components and come to life and start strolling around, and with a little magic and sleight of hand, just poof, eventually even become humans. As long as those things don't have a probability of zero, and as long as we throw enough time at it. Evolutionists have long cited the principles of probability, trying to find grounds to support evolution. As far back as 1954, Nobel laureate George Wald of Harvard University, writing in Scientific American concerning abiogenesis, which is the idea, again, that life can come from non-life. He wrote, "However improbable we regard this event or any of the steps it involves, given enough time, it will almost certainly happen at least once. And for life as we know it, once may be enough. Time is the hero of the plot. Given so much time, the impossible becomes possible, the possible becomes probable, and the probable becomes virtually certain. One has only to wait. Time itself performs miracles." Well, there's at least 4 problems with that statement about the nature of the laws of probability, which I address in my book, Science versus Evolution. See our website for that book, www.apologeticspress.org. For the sake of time, let's look at 3 of those problems for a few moments. First of all, even if we were to concede that having an exorbitant amount of time could somehow allow evolution to occur, there's still a problem. We simply aren't given that much time for it to have occurred. Many aren't aware that there are over 70 different scientific dating techniques based on standard evolutionary assumptions, which all indicate that the Earth is actually relatively young. Again, see our website for that evidence. Why aren't people aware of those dating techniques? Well, probably because they're not emphasized in classrooms and textbooks, because they don't support the naturalists' agenda. A second problem that comes up when the evolutionist claims that evolution is inevitable given enough time comes from the work of evolutionist Émile Borel, renowned French mathematician for whom the Borel lunar crater is named. In 3 books, he discussed in depth what is known as the single law of chance, which states that, quote, events whose probability is extremely small never occur. At least he says, quote, we must act in all circumstances as if they were impossible. The law, he says, applies to, quote, the sort of event which, though its impossibility may not be rationally demonstrable, is, however, so unlikely that no sensible person will hesitate to declare it actually impossible. If someone affirmed having observed such an event, we would be sure that he is deceiving us or has himself been the victim of a fraud. In other words, there are some events you can't directly prove to be impossible, but sensible people still consider them to be impossible. A person might be able to calculate the probability of something ridiculous happening, but that doesn't really make it possible in practice, in the real world. We have common sense, we have intuition, and intuitively, we human beings know that there are some things that simply won't happen, and we treat them as such. We disregard their possibilities without even a second thought. Borel tried to put a number on that idea. So what did he mean when he said events with extremely small probabilities don't occur? That's kind of vague, isn't it? Well, Borel gets more specific in his books. He tries to put some skin on the bones, if you will. He starts from the human perspective, determining what the typical human being considers to be a negligible probability, trying to put a number on what human beings consider to be, in essence, impossible events. For example, there's a possibility that a few monkeys with scissors and dozens of magazines working away for weeks and weeks could perfectly reproduce the complete works of Shakespeare by cutting out the necessary words and arranging them correctly. You could actually put a number on that possibility. But we as human beings know intuitively that that couldn't happen, regardless of how much time is given and regardless of the probability. Our common sense tells us that, because we know that a mind would be necessary to recreate such works. Random accidental arrangement isn't sufficient to explain the works of Shakespeare. Just because a person tries to calculate the probability of something ridiculous happening doesn't really mean that it could ever happen. We have common sense, we have intuition. We know that there are some things that simply won't happen, and we treat them as such. We disregard their possibilities without even a second thought. Another example, there's a possibility, a very minute probability, that an ape locked in a room playing with a laptop could potentially recreate perfectly the Encyclopedia Britannica by randomly banging keys. Did you know that you could actually compute a probability for that scenario? You could actually put a number to that possibility. But does that make it an event that would ever happen? Of course not. And yet the evolutionist still irrationally argues that evolution could happen. He says, well, it could happen. Apes could do that, and so evolution could happen too. Believe it or not, researchers at Plymouth University in England conducted a test with 6 Sulawesi-crested macaques, 6 monkeys, like these guys on the screen. Their goal was to see what would happen if 6 monkeys were left alone with a computer. Their names, Elmo, Gum, Heather, Holly, Mistletoe, and Rowan. Maybe they could accidentally write a volume of the Encyclopedia Britannica, right? You think that happened? How about just a page? How about a single paragraph? A sentence? Okay, surely they made at least one word, right? According to Mike Phillips, one of the researchers, the first thing that happened was that the, quote, lead male got a stone and started bashing it. He went on to say that another thing they were interested in was marking the keyboard as their territory. See, now that's what we would expect to happen with animals. Humans have common sense that tells us that these monkeys would not be able to replicate the Encyclopedia Britannica, no matter how much time they were given and no matter what the odds are. Did they ever produce anything? Well, yes, they did eventually produce 5 pages of text. It was primarily composed of the letter S and the letters A, J, L, and M from time to time. Mike Phillips said, they pressed a lot of S's. Obviously, English isn't their first language. Not one word of the English language was accidentally stumbled across. But wouldn't we expect results like that? Doesn't our common sense tell us that that's what will happen? It's not a matter of probability. There are just some things that won't occur regardless of how much time you give and no matter what you say the odds are. Burrell, in essence, developed a law that would help quantify such impossible events. He determined the probability for those events that the typical reasonable individual person would consider to be impossible. Negligible events, like the probability of monkeys recreating the works of Shakespeare with scissors and magazines. Then he stepped back, as it were, and mathematically extrapolated the probability of negligible events from an earthly perspective as a whole, rather than from an individual's perspective. And finally, from that, he calculated the probability of impossible universal cosmic events that would fall under the single law of chance. Ultimately, concerning those cosmic events, he argues using mathematics that humans consider the probabilities of chance cosmic events that are less than 1 in 10 to the 45th power to be impossible. This is a number that is arrived at after logical reasoning by a renowned mathematician and evolutionist. In other words, if the probability of a certain event happening in the universe is less than 1 in 10 to the 45th power, a 1 with 45 zeros after it, then intuition tells human beings to categorize that event as so unlikely that we would consider it to be an impossible event and not worthy of consideration. Now here's the problem. If atheistic evolution is true, then abiogenesis must be true. That is, life came about from non-life. Life spontaneously generated. It created itself. How does that relate to the single law of chance? Evolutionist Harold Marowitz of Yale University, currently professor of biology and natural philosophy at George Mason University, he estimated the probability of the formation of the smallest and simplest living organism to be 1 in 10 to the 340 millionth power. According to the single law of chance, that's a probability so far under what we should consider negligible that it really is unfathomable. The implication from the single law of chance is that the random chance formation of the smallest, simplest living organism would not occur. It's not worthy of our attention. According to Burrell, any sensible person would disregard the possibility of life coming from non-life, considering it to be an impossible event. Notice on the screen, 1 in 10 to the 45th power is the top number. The bottom number is only 1 in 10 to the 1,000th power. Add another 340,000 sets of that many zeros, and you have 1 in 10 to the negative 340 millionth power, the estimated probability of the formation of the smallest and simplest living organism, according to evolutionist Harold Marowitz of Yale University. That sound like a pretty slim chance to you? How about this? The late renowned evolutionist Carl Sagan made his own estimation of the chance that life could evolve on any single given planet, 1 in 10 to the 2 billionth power. That's 2 million sets of this many zeros on the screen. And what's more, you have to keep in mind that these calculations were made before much of the most recent research, which reveals with even more clarity the complexity of life. Again, these probability estimations for the formation of life made by evolutionists themselves are so far beyond the limit Burrell stated for cosmic events by the single law of chance that it's not even funny. It's actually shocking. The creation model has been put under a bushel, as it were, by the scientific community, even though it's actually the logical conclusion from the evidence, not evolution. Naturalistic evolution is so far-fetched and mystical that it amounts to witchcraft. Common sense, intuition, reason, mathematics all point to the conclusion that evolution, and therefore atheism, is not possible, even granting the evolutionists' own assumptions. The distinguished atheistic British astronomer Sir Frederick Hoyle once said regarding evolution, "The chance that higher forms have emerged in this way is comparable with the chance that a tornado sweeping through a junkyard might assemble a Boeing 747 from the materials therein." Hoyle further said, "At all events, anyone with even a nodding acquaintance with the Rubik Cube will concede the near impossibility of a solution being obtained by a blind person moving the cubic faces at random. Now imagine 10 to the 50th power blind persons, each with a scrambled Rubik Cube, and try to conceive of the chance of them all simultaneously arriving at the solved form. You then have the chance of arriving by random shuffling of just one of the many biopolymers on which life depends. The notion that not only biopolymers, but the operating program of a living cell could be arrived at by chance in a primordial organic soup here on the earth is evidently nonsense of a high order. The simultaneous placing of all the necessary pieces of the puzzle to form only one of life's biopolymers through blind chance, random accidents, and on top of that impossibility, the random, spontaneous creation of the program that controls the behavior of a cell at the same time, according to the famous scientist and evolutionist Fred Hoyle, that's nonsense. Science simply does not support such a fairy tale scenario.
We are close to the end. What I'll do is I'll put a link. David, can you put that link on our YouTube channel? Do you know how to do that, David? Okay. Polymers. Have you ever heard that term? Yes. You have heard that term? You have, David? Okay, good. Yes. Building blocks. So let's say that in a 5-gallon bucket, you have all of the building blocks, okay, that are there to make this most simplest of organisms. What he says here is the likelihood, even if you had all of the ingredients, you take 10 to the 50. My understanding is that would then be, you would have 5 million people with Rubik's Cubes with masks on. And you tell them, say, just go ahead and start jiggling them. And when I say stop, everyone stops. And so they're all jiggling them, 5 million of them, and they say stop. Even if you had all of the ingredients, the likelihood of all 5 million of them, when he says stop, they take their blindfolds off and wow, everyone's Rubik's Cubes was completely solved just at that time when they say stop. That's what he's saying there at the end. That's and again, let's just be clear, that's if all of the ingredients are available, the polymers. Where do the polymers come from? So from there, you have to, do you know how many more, instead of 5 million, it would be like 55 millions. And that's just a guess. To say, well, something happened, and as a result, a neutron, was developed, or I don't know. You see what I'm saying? Now, it's time to stop. We're going to make sure that if you go back, and I know my dad struggles when there's a video. I know that he struggles to hear it. Were you able to hear it very well? No. Mom, did you hear it very well? About 50%. The 50% that you heard, were you impressed? You were impressed? Yeah. If you could not hear that very well, you can go to our website and click on the YouTube channel. You can go to our YouTube channel, go to the Wednesday night thing, and you can listen to that with headphones on or in front of a television or a computer, and you can make that adjustment so that you can hear it. And I would recommend it, Dad. You would love this. You would just love this guy. The guy was good, wasn't he? He makes some really very interesting arguments. I don't think you have to watch a video like that to realize that what he said is true. Am I right? Yeah, I agree with that. I'm going to leave that with you guys. There was a remaining 7 minutes left. He just kind of went on a little bit more. I said I wasn't going to keep you past 8, and I really want to try to make sure that we don't do that. So We'll put the link on there. The thing of it is there's like 7 or 8 videos regarding this topic. This was the third of the 7 or 8. You're welcome to go back and watch them again, though at some point in time, don't be terribly surprised if they show up on a Wednesday night. Okay? If you liked this, let me know. If you did not like this, very, very, very kindly let me know. Okay? All right. I want to pray with you guys, and I want to let you guys get out of here. By the way, I know there's a lot of extra take-home stuff that you can take home. So you need... Oh, guys, please, 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 I am so tired. Please, I got a bus and a truck that's got a ton of stuff in it that needs to be unloaded. That's for our garage sale. It had to be out of the house, and so please, if you can spend 15, 20 minutes, if you've got some arms that you can do that with, that would be great. We need to get it downstairs. Not all of it's heavy, but some of it is. All right, let me pray with you guys. Lord, thank you again for this evening, for the great meal tonight, for the spiritual things that we've been talking about. I thank you for your word. I thank you, Lord, that in your word it says that you are just and that you judge with justice and righteousness. And Father, I pray, Lord, that you would just help us as we've been reminded of these things, maybe to engage people in conversations. What grieves me the most is, as the fellow said in the video, these things aren't being taught in the schools. And in fact, it might as well just be witchcraft that's being taught. Hocus pocus and just just things that just are so absurd, but they make it sound like anyone who doesn't believe in their agenda and their thoughts is a fool and is absurd. Lord, I just pray that you would help us. It's for sure that this isn't a video that would be welcomed by the far majority of people, and certainly, in our schools and such. But Father God, I just pray, Lord, that as you are good and as you are just, that you will continue to reveal the things to us, Lord, and to everyone, Lord, that they need to know. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.